We'll be around floating.
Awesome, it's good to see you guys.
I was expecting a lot more people here.
Huh?
I was kind of expecting and hoping for a lot more people.
I know. This is my first time. I'm super excited because I remember when y'all were collecting signatures. Was that like in January or something?
Yeah.
Did you guys notice the signs up on the wall about see you at the poll?
Mm-hmm.
Completely illegal.
I missed those.
Well,
Where were
it's
they at?
All around on the walls of the halls.
I saw the room that said that it was a peanut-free allergy zone.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's just down the hall. I was like,
well, hey, if you're the kid
Really?
who
I
has
know
a peanut
that's
allergy,
yeah,
that's a big.
that's a good room to be in.
Yeah.
I've never seen one of those.
I've also never seen gluten-free potato chips until yesterday, so...
Aren't potatoes by definition?
Thank you.
That's what
Gluten-free,
somebody posted.
Potatoes don't have gluten.
I
Thank
suppose
you.
it could be there so people who sort of an informative thing. Saying,
No, actually what I learned is that there are some potatoes that before they go in the fryer, they're coated in like wheat and stuff for some
See,
reason.
I wouldn't have known that.
See, and I did not know that either.
outside thing.
Yeah, I didn't know
Mine's
that either,
bigger.
so...
Well, see, and if I had a kid with a gluten allergy,
Okay, you got that thing.
I wouldn't have
It's on.
even thought it twice about it.
Yes, I didn't think that either. I actually, one
Another
of
picture.
my really good friends was the one who told me, and I was like, wow, okay, like, that makes sense. I just never seen it, and I thought it was one of those stupid things that they just decided to put on a bag for a marketing employee.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, because it always ends up being the gluten people that are like, oh, I can't have gluten-free, gluten-free everything. It's like, I need gluten-free gluten, like.
Gluten-free gluten.
And so I was like, that's got to be like some marketing ploy. So when I posted a picture on Facebook yesterday, and literally I was like, what the fuck is like gluten-free potato chips? Because obviously, like, potatoes don't have gluten. And then a bunch of people responded, and they told me
Yeah, it's all about whatever they add.
That's really interesting.
Well, but then you get a lot of the potatoes, though. They are, at least what I end up seeing, is the potatoes where they advertise, we have 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
Potato, oil, salt.
Yeah.
And it always struck me as well, isn't that what
Potato,
it's supposed to
potato.
be?
Your name's spelled with a Y or an I?
So I guess this is why they advertise that, because
I.
there's...
Are you the other one?
Yes, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Carol.
Kara.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Eric.
The other one, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of Alex or
Maybe.
closer.
Hey, how are ya?
Good.
Good.
You said
Hey,
I.
how are ya?
I already said I.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. My message
Yeah,
went down.
Set up.
Oh,
I couldn't
no.
find your name. So
Oh.
there I was
Oh,
supposed
you're
to
gonna-
go.
For the podcast.
And it still hasn't gone back up.
AZDP Secular Radio.
Well, even if you can't get in through the messenger, you can
nice.
actually just go in through
I
Facebook.
did that
Oh,
before
free.
too. It basically does the same
yeah.
thing. When I click on, I can, and through Facebook, I can bring up messages that people have sent me, but as soon as I click to try to
So are
respond.
you going to tell us about
Yeah, a lot
where
of
the
people have that
secular
problem on your page, Facebook. That's
Where the
Well, I saw the big old white dot.
Oh,
Explain to us what the
That's
secular
lovely.
caucus
No, why would I
does.
do that?
Thank you.
Let's get yourself one of our necklaces.
I expected
yeah, I
there to be a
love
lot
You
more.
like that? I like
do.
that.
Okay, so here's agendas
Brayden,
for everybody.
would you please?
Agendas and
How was your drive?
It was
it was
okay.
very
We have
barky.
dogs. You can
You
attest
did
to
bring them?
oh yeah, they're not very happy right now.
Three. 2, 1.
And here's the sign-in sheet for everyone, and I have copies of the bylaws so that you can look at them. We're going to go over those a little bit later.
You're excited, I can tell.
I am. I'm super excited.
Now,
Right now.
did Kara share the email from Dave Coward?
Oh, no.
Because if you don't have enough people that are state appointed, you can open it up, from my understanding,
For what?
for the board.
Yeah, if we don't have enough state committee members, then we can actually have people that are not state committee
Oh,
members.
you don't have a board yet?
No, this is the first meeting.
That's
Oh, this is your
This is
so
the first
exciting.
meeting, the very first
Yeah,
secular
and-
caucus.
I went to, and I signed up for the women's caucus,
That's
but
what
then
I
I was like, when I saw you guys, I was like, oh, I know where I'm going. I'm like,
Yeah, but
I'm
that
full on
doesn't, that's
Christian,
not,
I
has
mean, I
anything
have a
to do
home
with
church and
the,
all that stuff, but
I don't
I
think that
do
has
not
anything to
want
do
them
with the caucuses.
intermixed.
See,
That's for
Tricia,
state committee
this is what we,
officers, the
oh, sorry.
executive.
Yeah, but don't we have,
Trish,
we
no,
have
no,
to be
Tricia's
on,
good.
we
This
have to
is
be an
a
appointed or an
thing
elected
that we're always
state
talking about,
committee
is we don't want us to
person
look like,
Right.
like an
on the
atheist
caucus
humanist
board.
holy club.
Correct.
We want
So
people
if
that
we don't
are
have enough
faith,
people that are
that are
in
like,
the
you know
room,
what,
Yes,
keep
then
it
we
in
can
the
open it
church,
up.
keep it in
Then
the
we can
family,
open it up
but
to,
keep
like,
it out of
us.
government.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where I sort of kind of have an issue with it.
yeah.
Nope, 8:59.
Yeah, I know.
I was just hoping it would be more.
Well, a lot of them might have decided to listen on to the podcast.
They also may still be out there and not know it's back
True.
here.
Well, they should
Well,
have a
the
map.
page does actually.
There is a map.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had visited, asked somebody,
Yeah, I did too
Although
when I
it can
came.
say on the
It's like this
actual
at every
description,
state
you had
committee,
good
it's
access
always
to find
the
room.
same, like, chaos.
Well, on the map, well,
Yeah.
Sort of
And I
terrible.
can see
well, on the actual schedule, it says what rooms they're
It's right here.
I have one.
So the schedule and the room maps are all the same place.
This only goes to noon.
Yeah,
Right, then the
noon
afternoon
to 1 is
schedule
lunch,
here.
Oh, they'll,
and
they'll
then
have
1
a different
o'clock
one.
past is the
Okay.
plenary session.
Maturity, that's an interesting thing to have in a middle school.
Or what now?
Growth, harmony, maturity, self-discipline, all for a middle school. Isn't that a little odd?
Well, it's
Yeah.
aspirational, I'm sure. We'd like them
Mature
to
for
aim
middle
to be mature.
schoolers? Yeah.
Are you kidding? My
I'd like them
son
to
Okay,
try
we are
to become
broadcasting,
mature.
by the way, so don't say any, well, say whatever you want, I don't care.
No
This is the
FCC in
secular
this
caucus, we
room.
don't care. So,
Right,
yeah,
well,
so I
wait
guess
for
if
the
everyone wants to have a
sign-in
seat, we'll go
sheet.
ahead and get started, since there's just a few of us.
Hi,
Hi, thanks for coming today.
I am a member of the secular coalition.
So are we.
So are we?
There's bylaws, agenda, right there, there's a sign-in sheet running around.
Here's a sign-in sheet. There you go. And I need, what do you say, bylaws and
Yeah, there's bylaws,
something.
the agenda of the meeting.
Would you be a dear and grab me some too?
No morning today, no.
I haven't seen it. I don't know. So this,
So we don't need it, you're already a member, right?
That's correct. I'm a member in 2 ways, through the Free Thinkers and through the Secular Coalition.
which free thinkers?
Sedona Verde Valley.
Okay. Because I know some people with the Sierra Vista free
I
thinkers,
must
and
be
that
an
would be a long
officer,
drive.
well, let's see here. So who wrote up your bylaws?
Actually, what happened was, is we did new bylaws with the Progressive Caucus,
Oh,
and
okay.
then I took those and adjusted them because they were really, really solid. I mean, we spent a lot of time building those, and then modified it to work for us. But we're gonna go over a few things too after the elections, because there's a couple of bylaw changes I wanna make, because, well, whoever's elected chair can make that decision, I guess. Because right now, I'm just the acting chair. Welcome to the very first meeting of the Secular Caucus, the Democratic Party. We are being broadcast live on the internet, so just so you're aware, we'll have a place and we'll put a link to it on Facebook so you can get to the episode later if you want to listen in again at another point in time. I guess I probably need a copy of the agenda so I can pay attention. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Scott Pryor. I am a 3-time Senate candidate for LD16. I have been a humanist for most of my life. Once I reached the age of reason, of course. I was raised in Texas, so I used to be a Sunday school teacher and choir and all that other fun stuff until I actually went to college and got away from the, oppression. And so my wife and I, we decided not to run again for office because, frankly, we're tired after 6 years of running for the office. But secular ideas and the separation of church and state is something that we believe in wholeheartedly. And it's something that we want to get behind and find a way to make it different. In 2016, February, and you were there because you testified at the Phoenix City Council as well, the Satanic Temple offered to give prayer at the Phoenix City Council meeting.
Invocation.
Invocation. An invocation. And it turned into literally a shit show. It was February 2nd, and we were both running. She was running for the House, I was running for the Senate. The news media called her, put her on the news.
Our anniversary.
On our anniversary, our 21st anniversary. She's giving a Skype interview to Channel 5. And then the next day was a city council meeting, and we went to that, and I testified on behalf of creating a moment of silence, as opposed to the indoctrination of, hey, let's have Christian prayer at every, meeting. Del Cicio, I can't
Del
pronounce his name.
Cicio?
Del
Del
Cicio.
Cicio?
Sent out letters to all the churches and told them to come and support it. So there was probably 2% of the audience was in favor of a moment of silence, and everybody else was part of the church. So it was it was an incredibly lengthy speak period. But after that happened, we realized, specifically both of us, that it was time that the Democratic Party needs to step up and take a part of this. Because they were completely silent during that time period, which was, it pissed me off. We're supposed to be supporting diversity and, separation of church and state. Here was a perfect way that they could have stepped into that conversation, and they just ignored it. So, this year in January, I put together all the paperwork and submitted the bylaws and everything to the state committee. And we needed 20 signatures to become a caucus. We ended up with 96 signatures to become a caucus.
Thank you, C.J. Brickle.
We were voted in at the last state committee meeting unanimously by the executive board. So this is the first official caucus. I have been acting as the chair. I hope that I can be elected as chair so I can continue. But if not, anybody that wants to do it, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. But we need a chair, 2 vice chairs, and the vice chairs need to be 1 female, 1 male from 2 different counties. We want to be diverse across the state. A secretary and a parliamentarian, or a secretary parliamentarian. You can do both. And depending on bylaws, and I need to talk to the state party to find out, I would like to see us being able to raise funding so that we could actually print flyers, or we could actually have fundraiser events and try to bring people, even those that are not Democrats, to the side of the idea that we need to make sure that we have a separation wall between church and state. That's the only wall we need to build. Come on in. Have a seat. Hi. Thanks for coming. So, since I'm hopefully going to be running for chair, Braden's going to start off the election so that I'm not biased in anything. And for those of you that just came in, we are broadcasting live to the internet, audio. So if you want to cuss and swear, go ahead. I don't care. Because this is a secular conference. We don't care about that kind of stuff. Free speech now. Yes.
So can you explain a little bit more about what secular actually means?
Okay, secular means non-religious.
Okay.
When it comes down to the base nomenclature. Okay, the idea that was put into the Constitution was that we did not have. They were coming here to escape religious persecution.
Right.
So they didn't want to create a new country and have that possibility, which is where we got the Establishment Clause, First Amendment, separation of church and state was in the Treaty of Tripoli. Thomas Jefferson was very big about it, talking to, which Baptist church was it? I think it was in Massachusetts, where he specifically talked about the separation between church and state and why it's important to keep that separation. Because not only does it protect government, it protects religion. Over the past 230-something years, it's evolved to the fact that it protects religion as long as it's Jewish, Christian, and the rest have to come up from behind. And that's not the way it should be played. So the Secular Caucus, the whole idea was that we would start working on resolutions within the Democratic Party that we could submit to the state committee and have them actually put that as part of their platform to make sure that all religions are treated equally, regardless. And that we push the legislators, both ours and theirs, to support secular government so that we're not using theocracy to create laws. Like, the Hobby Lobby winning their little case because of the birth control. That was religious-based type of a deal. And that's what we want to prevent, and that's what we kind of want to guide the party along in.
And not just treat all religions equally, but treat those who are non-religious equally as well.
Right, yes. Because I'm a humanist. I don't have a religious belief, I have a way of life. But that is my, belief, because I believe that humans can be good or bad, regardless of religion. And I'm not protected, I'm not spoken for at the Capitol. at the Arizona Capitol or the U.S. Capitol. Nobody speaks for me because I don't follow the guidelines of.
Yes, we do.
Well, we do, but they don't see us that way, and that's where we have to change the impression and change the conversation. Any other question?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
The secular coalition is nonpartisan.
Right.
Correct. I mean, but,
Correct.
no, I'm glad, but they do follow the Democrats because they usually stand for the same things.
Right. Right, but that's what's different between us and the secular coalition, because we're members also, is that this specifically is to guide the party, and that's what we need to be focusing on. We're hoping to do stuff with secular coalition and some other free-thinking groups, have like house parties and little events around the state to try to get the message out. Because we know a lot of people in our district that are strong Christians that are very adamant that we need to separate government and theocracy.
It's in their best interest too.
Yeah, because it protects them. Because first it's, okay, this is a Christian nation. And then it's, okay, this is a Catholic nation only, and the Baptists and the Methodists and everybody else don't count. We can't pick and choose that. And so that's why we want to try to work, at least from this, what we can here. And then hopefully it'll filter up. But we'll see. Anything else? Anyone? Okay, well, Braden,
Okay,
it's your job.
oh great.
At least for a few.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to vote on, I forget all of them.
Chair, two vice chairs, secretary, parliamentarian.
Okay. If you say so. So we're going to go ahead and start off with chair. So I need nominations.
First off, for everybody that doesn't know, this is Braden Biggs.
Oh, I should probably
Introduce yourself.
Should we all introduce ourselves?
Yeah.
Are there any more of these?
Yeah, there's
Scott, while we're introducing ourselves, seeing as everybody knows you, will you write the steps so everybody knows the steps as well? And I don't lose track.
Okay.
So my name is Braden Biggs. I am the first vice chair for LD 16. I do a lot of other things as well. I'm all over LD 16 and the city of Apache Junction specifically. So if anybody is around that area or pays attention to anything that happens in LD 16 or the surrounding area or even Pinal County, you'll see my name pop up here, there, and everywhere. I work for United Way, well specifically United Way of Pinal County as well. So I work the nonprofit front and the political front as well. So Kara, I will let you introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Kara Fryer. I live out in LD 16. I'm married to the guy running on the board. Just basically excited to be here.
You really can't stay.
Hi, Karen. I love you. Hi. Where's the sign sheet?
It's right here on the station.
Okay.
We're broadcasting.
Want to get a picture of Karen?
No, that's fine.
You're good, Karen.
People need to understand that we're all just real people.
What?
I'm not. Speak for yourself.
Before we vote on anything, can you guys explain to me a little more about this specific caucus, or what is the...
Well, the caucus itself is to try to guide the state party, to push our elected leaders, both Democrats, Republicans, whoever gets elected, to follow a secular idea when they do legislation. So they're not making laws that will inhibit on religion or non-religion. And that's just the goal of the caucus, just to actually, we're a group of people that come together, we come up with some ideas.
How powerful or how much of an influence does a narrowly focused caucus have versus I see the LGBTQ? I see several. Is there opportunities for folks to come together?
Yes. Yeah, there is an actual caucus chair meeting from 12 to 1, where all the caucuses send their chairs, and that way they can all interact. And a lot of the resolutions that come up were done by members of the different caucuses. So when we go to the plenary session this afternoon, there's going to be, like 5 or 6 resolutions. One of those is the equality one that we've been working on.
Resolutions for
the state party to vote in favor or against. And that will kind of become part of their program. So if we can come up with some really good resolutions, we submit that to the state committee. The state committee can vote, yes, let's do this. And then they put out press releases, we voted to do this, they send that to our elected, Democrat elected officials, and pretty much make it notice to anybody that's there that this is what the Democratic Party believes. That's the whole idea.
Back to introduction, we ended here.
Hi, you're good.
Okay, sorry. My name is Angela Lefeva. I'm from Sedona, Arizona. I'm very interested to know more about this coalition. You do know?
Yes. I'm Diane Post. I'm an attorney in Phoenix, and I'm with a lot of different things. An activist, basically.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Franklin. I belong to the Secular Coalition of Arizona. I was also a treasurer of Americans United, Separation of Church and State for Valley of the Sun.
My name is Tricia Burleson. I'm in LD 28. I'm the treasurer for Democracy for America, Maricopa County, and just a local activist.
Good morning, I'm Corey Bird. I live here in the Prescott area. I'm the organizer for the Prescott Freethinkers meetup group and part of the Prescott Progressives in the Democratic Party. And I'm really interested to see how else we can participate and network with the whole state. And we're also a member of the coalition.
Hi, my name is Zach Garfield. I'd like to go back through everybody's introductions and answer the questions on the board.
I mean,
I'm part of Legislative District 1 as just a concerned citizen by the direction our local and federal politics are going. And just recently joined the Freethinkers group and have recently participated in a secular coalition legislative update a couple weeks ago. So my interest is peaked.
And what do you like to do with your time away from
He's surrounded by like-minded people.
Anybody back here need to sign?
My name's Anthony Deming. I'm in Legislative District 30. And I'm kind of here to see how we can get more of a secular voice back in government.
Yeah, my name's Phyllis Case. I'm basically an observer here. I'm with Prescott Indivisible, and I'm registered independent, but I usually vote Democratic.
I'm Paige Livingston. I'm an LD 18 and definitely excited to be here and see where and how I can participate and contribute.
I am Eric Albright. I'm from Legislative District 6. I'm the Coconino County Coordinator for Safer Arizona, which is the initiative to legalize cannabis in 2018. We're trying to get back on the ballot. And I'm registered Democrat. I usually vote independent. But I've been collecting signatures for the last several months with a variety of Democrats in Flagstaff for 2404 and for Safer Schools. And so I was asked to come here today and check this out.
I'm Ronnie Jelm. I'm membership chairman and vice president of Democrats of the Red Rocks in Sedona. And I'm just here to find out what you guys do.
I'm Debbie Hickman, and I'm the the chair of Cochise County Democratic Party. Cochise is Sierra Vista and Bisbee and those kind of places. And I'm also, whatever, with the Freethinkers. And
Oh, I'm Claudia Clark from Cottonwood. I think it's LD6. Let's see. I'm on the door board. I'm a member of the Arizona Secular Coalition, this guy's, and I'm a member of the Sedona Verde Valley Secular Freethinkers, and I'm a member of the Indivisible Resist, They're United group, and so I'm really interested in this.
I'm Marie Colangelo, LD18. Besides a lot of other things, I chair Democrats and Donuts there, and I really just want to see what we can do to keep the separation of church and state.
Did I hear Democrats and donuts?
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on Democrats and donuts? Because I like this thing.
It's the flip side of Republicans and red meat.
Yeah. It's a monthly morning meeting, and we bring speakers in to talk about
Donuts.
and candidates. It's started about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Donuts are popular. I said donuts are popular.
Yeah, and because so many people couldn't make the evening meetings or big evening meetings, so we get a lot of people who can only come during the day, and of course people come also from our regular LD18 meetings, and it's open to everybody.
Maybe we need to entice people with donuts in 16.
Sure.
Gosh.
We tried that and it didn't work.
Ooh, pies.
Actually tried to-
No, village in, so we got pies.
Okay.
Okay, we're not foodie time.
Hello, my name is Johnny Martin. I'm a candidate for Arizona's House of Representatives in LD 25 in Mesa. I am a person of a minority faith tradition, and because of that, I have I think secular government is of the utmost importance, and it's something I advocate for on a very regular and consistent basis, even long before I decided to run for office. My campaign manager is also Andre Soleil, who happens to be a pretty well-known activist in secular humanist and atheist communities. So I'm happy to be here to participate.
You're who I've been hearing so much about.
Hi, Paul Schwartz. I'm a board member of the Yavapai Democratic Party.
Great. Awesome.
Now we answer the questions?
Now we have to do the questions. What does everybody like to do on their time away from school? Drink wine! Yes!
Fireball.
I'm still in school, so I still never get away from it. So as far as nominations, Scott, do you want to talk about who can be
For the Sacred Caucus, according to the bylaws, you must be PC elected or appointed, state committee elected or appointed to run for office. The reason we did that is because about 4 years ago, the two chairs of the Progressive Caucus resigned. One was running for superintendent of public instructions, and the other one, I'm not sure exactly where she is now. I think she's still in Bisbee. I think.
So there was a secular caucus?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Progressive Caucus.
Oh.
Progressive Caucus. So I ran as one of the co-chairs for the Progressive Caucus, and because they didn't, anybody that was a registered Democrat could run for office at that point in time for the Progressive Caucus. And what it turned into is we had people that had never been to state committee, nobody knew who they were, and this was a person that was in my legislative district that popped up and said, I want to be chair. So it was just all of a sudden we had people that were running for office that we couldn't even verify they were Democrats. So we changed the bylaws with the Progressive Caucus to make sure that at least in the beginning, like we were discussing earlier, if not enough people are state committee members, as long as they're a registered Democrat and maybe at least a PC, then we can have them run for office if we can't find enough that are state committee.
How do you become a state committee?
You have to either be appointed, depending on where you're at.
Okay.
You get elected at the reorganization if you're a PC, or you get appointed by, like in Pinal County, the county chair is the one that appoints state committee members after the election. So like if I was to drop out from state committee, then Dave Coward would appoint somebody to take my place.
But most of us elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm a PC, but that's about it.
So how many SCs do we have in the room?
State committee
The
people.
state committee.
PC.
State
No,
committee.
state committee.
Not just a PC, a state committee.
Who are?
Who are, so everybody's hand that is up is currently a state committee? Okay. So.
How many are going to be running for office, or for one of the positions for officer?
I will. Oh, shit.
Okay. So with that being.
I'm such a sucker.
So with that being said.
So with that being said, then we can, if none of the other, were you going to be running for?
I haven't even thought about it.
Okay. I know this kind of came as a surprise to some, so if the SCs obviously get first priority and then it will be opened up to we the PCs. So are there PCs who are interested in running for office?
One of the board positions.
Or one of the
Precinct
precinct
committee person. You'd be a Democratic Party precinct committee person. There we go.
I got in a little late. What are the positions?
We have chair.
On the board.
Chair,
Oh,
two
oh.
vice chairs, a male and a female. They have to be from different counties. The secretary and the parliamentarian.
Sorry, I have a question.
No, you're fine. So, were there PCs who were interested in running for a board position?
What would it require?
Yeah,
It's in the bylaws.
It's in the bylaws.
Rather than read the bylaws.
Let's go ahead and start, and then we can move along, because we'll see who's interested in that.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start with the chair, and I need to call for a nomination for chair.
I nominate Scott Pryor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we do all the nominations first and then the times 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to ask if I want the position.
Do you want the position?
Yes.
I mean,
following Robert's rules.
I was assuming by your earlier. Okay, 2 vice chairs.
Well, are there any other nominations
Yeah,
for
we
chair?
got to do each one.
Oh, we do actually have to. Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing and seeing none, I'm closing out the chair. 2 vice chairs. We will start with the first vice chair. Do I have any nominations for the first vice chair?
I'll nominate me.
We have to do each one individually?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to call a vote.
Is this resolution or secular?
Secular.
Susie made it.
Okay, now you have to do an interpretive dance because. I am going to call for a vote to vote Scott Pryor as chair for the Secular Caucus. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Voting? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. How do I do? Yes,
All in
thank you.
favor?
That's what I was looking for. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving to first vice chair then.
We have to do one or the other first, because they have to be from 2 different counties.
So first vice chair.
Well, they're both vice chairs, but we have to either select the female one first or the male one first, and then the female one will have to be from a different county.
Okay. We will nominate ladies first then. Fine, we'll nominate men first, because men dominate this world, so screw women. What? No!
So different counties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll nominate myself for something else.
What? Somebody can nominate you
What
too.
is yours?
We were
What's your
looking-
name? Mike. My name is Tricia.
Wait, we already went through this.
Right.
I barely remember my own name,
So-
I nominate Tricia for vice chair.
I second it.
Oh, I thought you wanted to be vice chair.
No, there's 2.
There's 2 anyway.
There are
There's
two.
The male,
One male, one
One
female.
male,
But
one
they have to be
female.
in different.
Yeah, what county are you in?
Maricopa.
And you're in Maricopa.
Maricopa.
Okay, so if you're elected, you would be able to.
Right,
Oh,
right.
Yes.
So that's what I mean. I can nominate you. I nominate Mike for
The
vice
female chair?
Okay, fine.
I'll nominate Kara.
No.
I'll nominate Kara.
Okay, so
She's
we
in
have.
Pinal County.
Yes, so we have a nomination for Kara Pryor as our chair for, or vice chair for Pinal County, and we have a nomination for Mike as our vice chair for Maricopa County. Okay,
That's awesome.
do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations?
And you say it 3 times because?
Yes,
That's
that's
the
the
rule.
rule. It's the rule.
Actually, that's not in the
It's not in the bylaws.
I knew it was, but I.
So hearing and seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the nominations, and I will open that up to a vote. So, what was that?
I move that we,
I don't think you need a motion to vote.
I
Just
move that
say.
we just
All
accept
in
it with
favor.
acclamation.
Okay.
That's a word.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, moving to secretary.
I nominate Tricia for secretary.
Yay!
I second.
Do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations? Hearing and seeing none, I will close that and open it to voting.
Acclamation.
Acclamation.
Second.
Yep. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. This makes it really easy.
Huh?
And moving to parliamentarian. Do I have-
Parliamentarian is in charge of making sure that the bylaws are followed.
What about your treasurer?
Well, we don't have a treasurer yet because, number one, that wasn't included in the original bylaws. You can't see the red mark. That's one of the things we're going to discuss after it's elected.
Okay.
We have to actually petition and set it up so that we can actually have, I got to figure out from Rick McGuire exactly what we need to do to follow so that we don't interfere or fall into the category of PAC or anything like that that's going to be lost on. So that's part of the bylaws changes that we'll talk about in a bit, and then we can vote on those, and then I will take care of it. I'll go to the state party and find out how we can do that.
Okay.
So, is anybody interested in parliamentarian?
Him. I don't remember what your name is.
Can I run it if I'm being nominated?
No.
No.
Okay.
Write your name.
So,
So
is there a second for that?
Second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any
What
other
was your
nominations?
name?
Braden.
Braden.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close voting on that. Or nominations. Do we have a motion for a vote? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so all in favor of voting by acclamation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, here's that.
You didn't ask if I wanted the position.
I wasn't even expecting that.
I think so.
So that's that wasn't too painful. So we have a little bit of business that we got to try to get done before. Well, we've got about an hour. I set it up. If you look at the agenda, we have a lot of candidates that contacted me that want to come by and say hi to the caucus. So I want to try to finish our stuff before then, so that we can actually get the meeting on it.
Do you want to write down the name of the newly elected officers?
The secretary is supposed to do that.
Oh.
Do you even know their names?
But do it on the board so that.
Duck and cover.
There we go, right? Weren't expecting us for another 2 months.
Okay, I know that most of you were probably expecting the world to end today. I'm sorry that it at least it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it'll happen right before the plenary starts. 3 or 4 hours of that.
Was that another doomsday
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
today?
We were supposed to get hit by a planet.
Like
X
the
or
night.
or-
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently this morning he said, "Oh no, I lied." Uh-oh, now there's trouble.
Oh, boy. There goes another. Oh, double trouble.
Next witnesses.
30 seconds.
We don't have, everybody's going to get 30 seconds between 10:30 and 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got a lot, because this is our first meeting, we've got a lot, shit ton of work.
Cool, yeah. It's just the ADP document.
Yeah, come back at 10:30, please.
Thanks.
Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is the bylaws. Did everybody get a copy of that?
Stolen.
Yeah. You can read it at your leisure because it's already instituted, but there was some changes. The first change is in Article 2, Section 2, under Officers, where I put in one treasurer with the idea that we will, once I figure it all out with the state party, be able to actually fundraise to help with flyers and events so we can get people together, working together with other organizations like the Free Thinkers and Second Coalition and stuff like that.
Hand those down.
Oh, I was coming around.
Oh, you're coming around, okay.
And then the next change, these are supposed to be in color, but Kara messed up and printed it on a black and white printer. The next one is section 4D, which is duties of officers, and it basically lists what the chair or the treasurer will be doing once we figure that out. And then the next change is Article 3 under membership. One of the things that I'll probably take a lot of flack for, but I kind of believe in, is eligibility. Now, according to the state bylaws, our bylaws have to say that members of the caucus can only be registered, or has to be, a portion of the bylaws has to state that you have to be a Democrat, a registered Democrat, to be a member of the caucus. Because this transcends political parties. If you see you can't see it in red, but I put in those that wish to participate with the caucus who are not registered Democrats will be considered advocates of the caucus and be allowed to contribute and participate in caucus activity. Because I know a lot of people that believe wholeheartedly in the separation of church and state that are independents or Green Party or others that want to participate but don't feel they can. And I want to make sure that we include them because that's the only way we're going to push out past the Democratic Party and move into independence and the Green Party and everything like that. And those are the only changes that I have on the bylaws at this point. Now, your homework assignment, since we're in school, will be over the next couple of months if you want to take a copy of this, and I'll make sure that this is posted online so you can download it. Look through it, and at the next meeting, we can actually, if you have any other ideas, changes, etc., that we can put in there that makes it more workable for all of us, then we can discuss that. We can put that on the agenda. So at this point in time, what do you guys think about adding the treasurer and opening up to the advocates? Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. So all in favor of amending the bylaws to include that, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Wow, that was quick.
I have a quick question.
Sure. Me too.
Does that include, and what about eligibility? Would an organization like Prescott Indivisible, people can that be allowed to participate in?
Yes.
To partner with us about things?
Yes.
I need to pass that along to our steering.
Yeah, and then just have them talk to me once you guys come up with an idea and a decision and stuff like that. Have them contact me directly, and we'll work all that out.
Okay.
But yeah, we need to make sure that organizations that are not Democratic Party organizations, but believe in this, chip in. Because that's the only way we're really going to make a change. And yeah, I'll probably get flogged later, but that could be fun. We'll see.
So is that under membership that we changed the
Yeah.
wording? For
Article 3, Section 1, we added those that wish to participate. Yeah.
Article 3, Section 1, yeah.
Yeah. It's starting at those that wish to participate.
Okay.
I presume that means non-voting participation.
No, that means participating. We can't limit this caucus based on party lines. We can't.
Oh, I see. So what we just pretty much did is...
They can't be considered members because that violates the bylaws. But they can be advocates of the caucus and still participate equally.
So
They just won't
if
be
you come
members.
to caucus meetings, you can vote.
Sure, I don't see why not.
How often are you going to have meetings?
The meetings happen every 3 times a year.
Yeah.
But I'm going to institute a monthly teleconference so that everybody can join online, and we can actually have a webinar and maybe get some cool speakers to participate, and that way you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Hey, Dave.
How are you?
Good.
Are you taking speakers?
Between 10:30 and 11.
Between 10:30 and 11.
Yeah, this is our first caucus, so we're trying to...
I know. Excited for y'all. I'll see you at 10:30.
Okay, thanks.
Should we put something on the door that says?
Which part? We could probably write on the actual thing out there.
They won't read it.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
true.
your-
Yeah,
Yes.
So how do I become part of the caucus?
You are.
You're here. If you're signed in on that sheet, you're a part of the caucus.
Oh, okay.
And I will take, you put emails and stuff on there, we will start sending out newsletters and stuff like that from the caucus.
I would suggest you add wording about eligible to vote.
Well, I mean, that's what it says, I mean, contribute and participate.
And participate.
Participate means be a part. You can't be called a member according to the state bylaws.
But you can vote within the caucus.
Correct.
So that should be in there because if that's not.
Okay, so we can amend that to be allowed to contribute, participate, and vote in caucus activity.
Right.
Okay, so we will amend that. Yes, sir.
I have a question regarding membership as well, just because it does outline that membership is conferred after attendance at an in-person meeting and submission of a membership application.
Yeah.
And it says you can also get same-day registration, so I'm just wondering, where is that application? Is it
That application is in process,
Okay, gotcha.
but everybody that's here that signed in is considered a member.
Okay, wonderful.
At the next state committee meeting, I will make sure that we do have that registration slip so that everybody can actually be part of it.
Great.
There's a clipboard right there. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious as to why somebody doesn't join the Democratic Party. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why are we doing this? I'm curious.
I know as an ex-state employee, if you're an auditor, you're afraid to be affiliated with any party. I mean, and there's a lot of people with jobs that feel that they cannot be a registered of any party because it will endanger.
But we're talking registered Democrat. We're not talking about party member.
Oh,
I mean,
no,
if you have a driver's license and you know what I'm saying, you're registered, so.
Right, but a lot of people, I mean, if you look at Arizona, the second largest voting bloc in Arizona right now is independents.
Which is a problem, which I'm saying shouldn't.
Well, is it a problem though?
I think it is a problem.
It
yes.
could be in some ways it's not.
I think it is a problem.
Okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
Could I respond? just in the interest of discussion, because I think that's healthy. As somebody who registered and re-registered back and forth as independent and Democrat several times before deciding to run for office as a Democrat, I could just say for those of us who don't trust corporate influence in the Democratic Party and think that's a systemic problem, we should be able to advocate for secular values in this caucus while still flirting with leaving the party if we so choose, because sometimes I think that's important to be able to speak up and stand up for those values.
Ideas before party.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on the bylaws?
On the what?
Bylaws? Yeah, so we're going.
Yeah, how are you going to word section 1?
We're going to just add contribute, participate, and vote.
And vote, okay.
So make sure you get on the sign-in sheet, because we're going to build a database of emails so we can email you when we're having meetings, if we're having webinars. You can email us back and say, hey, I have this person that would be great to talk, to present on a webinar, and we can do that.
Once the application is done, do we want to email out the application? That way they have it and we can scan it and email it back to us?
Sure, we can do that.
Instead of bringing it to
There was just a whole bunch of stuff that I had to get done before we got here today, and that was one of the things that slipped through the cracks. Yeah, so we'll get the application done, get it sent out, and then you can send it back. But I mean, pretty much everybody here that's on the sign-in sheet, I'm pretty much assuming that you wanted to be a member. So if you don't, then please let me know, and that way we can scratch your name off and you won't get our email. All right, so let's move on. Mission statement, core values. That's one of the things that we fought with a lot in the Progressive Caucus when I was the chair, was coming up with an actual mission statement or goal sheet or something that we could actually say, this is what we're trying to do, so we can send it out to people, and that way they kind of get an understanding. Yes?
Do we need to vote and pass the bylaws? Or
They're already in place.
Yeah, the bylaws were already submitted to the state party in January, so that's done. We voted to actually amend it with the amendments we talked about. So, all right, so core values or platform, I don't know what you guys want to call it, but we do need to have something that we can all agree upon. This is what this caucus is going to do. So, ideas.
Well, you already have your mission down here. What is it you're looking for outside of this?
That's the mission statement. But what kind of causes do we believe in? Okay, what kind of, like for example, the DACA. If you support DACA, is that something the secular caucus should support? If you support a woman's right to choose, that should be something that we support. And put in together a list of these ideas that we actually support. Free education, public education, not charter, people making millions of, vouchers and stuff like that. I mean, whatever we want to put in this, we can. That was just my idea.
I think that comes back to the question I had to begin with, is if those are general party platforms versus this caucus to just be focusing on separation of church and state issues.
Well, I mean, yeah, but could it be considered a separation of church and state issue?
Women's right to
Hell
choose.
yeah.
Women's right to
Yeah.
Women's right to choose is.
I don't think the school
But should
voucher.
it?
School voucher? Yes, it is.
Well,
Yeah.
it is actually.
School
Yes.
vouchers is a
I
very
say that out
big-
loud, but then I'm like,
Well,
oh
yeah,
wait.
if it's just one generalized statement that any of these topics that
Right.
intersect,
Okay, so like the
we
mission
can take a look
statement?
at.
What is it?
Can you read the mission statement?
Or is there a
is it on
benefit to
your
listing
site?
It's on the
all
first
of those
page,
items
Joanne.
at the
Yeah,
top?
it's section 2.
Section 2.
Oh,
Article
Mission-
1, Section 2.
Yeah, the mission of the AZSD, which is us,
Oh, I
is to
see.
strengthen the voice of grassroots activists, to work in support of secular government and the Democratic Party candidates who champion those values, to elect Democrats, which is a requirement of the state bylaws to say that, and to support and strengthen the Arizona Democratic Party. That's our mission statement, built specifically to match the state party's bylaws because we're required to do that. So that's the mission statement. So do we want to have some sort of a platform or whatnot that we go into? Or do we just say that?
Well, you could take some of your platform from this, can't you? Because isn't it?
Well, yeah, but that would be
similar?
plagiarism, wouldn't it? I mean, that's not ours.
Well, no, but it's the same
Hey,
idea.
if Tori comes after me because we take stuff out of here and she
No, no,
beats
no,
my
no.
ass, I'm coming after you.
That's, I think she'll take
Well,
all
I
the
think-
bullshit. I'm saying, it's
Yeah.
like, this is the idea, because it's similar to what this is.
Right. We can have that discussion. I can talk to the board at Secular Coalition and see if we can kind of match that. And that way
That
we
would
would be
make
working
sense rather
together.
than reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Or with the core values that lists all of those items, is there potential to dilute the focus? Even though those
It could
things,
be, yeah.
even though those things intersect, is there maybe a benefit of just having the core be something like any issues that intersect with religion?
And government, right.
We will
We will
focus on, or
Right.
take a look at, or.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah.
Right, I'm totally agreeing with her and saying something like, we will be aware of, investigate, or something, any,
Active, we look.
policy, procedure, law, legislation, whatever, that has an impact or that has the result of enhancing a religious belief and interfering with, a value of the Democratic Party. I mean, because all those things, DACA, pro-choice, blah, 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 those are all Democratic things anyway, why do we have to repeat them? So some language along your line, I totally agree with you.
As far, I don't know how specific we want to get into like legislation currently on the table or policy positions that we're currently fighting battles over, but as far as it comes to like specific things we're dealing with separation of church and state issues, like Prop 305, and getting people to vote no on Prop 305 to make sure taxpayers' dollars are staying in our public schools, which are a secular institution, as opposed to having our tax dollars diverted to private schools where the money is completely unaccounted for and mismanaged. Like that to me is like a specific, tangible thing that like starting today and over the next year, this caucus could really advocate for and make a difference on because it's about secular values.
Right, right. No, I agree. I agree. And this is the 20-minute lull in the conversation. Just you. Okay, so we don't really necessarily need core value. So how would we word this so that it covers that? The best way to word it so that it covers what you both just said.
I'm writing it
Okay.
while we're talking.
Okay. Yeah.
It's an attorney.
When it comes to writing stuff,
Sure. Well, instead of the 20-minute thing of everybody pitching in, I'd be okay with compiling something and then maybe voting on it.
right, yeah, and that way we can spend an hour listening to candidates instead of just 30 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Is this going around the country? I mean, this is the first time I've seen this.
Secular Coalition for Arizona is the state version of
Right.
Secular Coalition for America. I think this is the only actual chapter that has lobbyists in the United States. Tori, I can't pronounce her name. She spends tons of time at the Capitol every election cycle, or every legislative cycle, to make sure that and lobby for secular values.
And Arizona is a model that the National is trying to adopt and get other states to do.
Yeah, they're trying to get it started in all these other states.
Hasn't been started
No, just this state.
The lobby.
Well, the lobby.
For the lobby part. They do have secular coalition chapters in other states.
Yeah.
But here, we're the only state that actually has lobbyists that spend time at the Capitol and try to get people to not do dumb. Doesn't work, apparently, but we could try.
Yeah, poor Victoria, she was so disturbed.
Oh, yeah. But that's the thing, and that's one of the reasons why when Karen and I were talking about starting one of these, is because this is the third in the nation, the third Democratic Party in the United States that has created a secular caucus. Texas was first, and then Utah, and then us. Which, yeah.
Well,
When you think about it, which of the three reddest states that are doing some of the dumb?
Yep.
Yeah, here we are. So, and that's why we're here. That's why all of us are here, is because we're concerned about what we see. I see, DeVos talking about all that theocracy stuff back in school. Drives me up the wall. Was it Arkansas or was it Alabama that just made it? No, what was it in Texas? No, which state was it? Where they're requiring them to put "In God We Trust" in schools. I think it's either Alabama or Arkansas.
How are they getting away with that? It's going to have to be challenged.
It's going to be challenged. I think FFRF is going to challenge it.
Good.
But I mean, they passed a law and signed it. The governor signed it and everything. So they're being required to put "In God We Trust" in schools, on the boards, on the walls.
What state is this?
It's either Arkansas or Alabama.
I think it's Arkansas.
Is it? I can't remember. I knew it started with an A. I saw it and I was like, really? Seriously? You're going to do this? After all of the battles that we've had over the separation of church and state and constitutional stuff.
You would think that, that like the ACLU or something would jump on that and.
Yeah, FFRF.
Hold until it's
Yeah,
reviewed.
FFRF is in on it. I know that they've actually started creating action to.
Weirdly enough, I actually just looked it up, and those bills are actually being pushed in Alabama, Pennsylvania, and Arkansas.
So,
right on
So it's coming to Arizona next.
it's coming to Arizona.
I'm surprised.
It will show up. Now,
Right.
one of the things that disturbs me is, and we were talking about the Save Our School stuff, voting no on Prop 305 and everything. Chances are that is going to be repealed in January. Yeah, because that's what they do at the legislature. Was it 2014 when they tried to they voted and passed the law to just completely destroy voting. You couldn't vote. You couldn't have people pick up your ballots anymore. They did all this stuff. And they popped in and said, okay, we're not going to do that. And within like 60 days, they got enough signatures to get a petition to repeal that on the ballot. The next session, they repealed it themselves. And then they split it into small bills and snuck it through in a whole bunch of different areas. And that's what they're going to do. I guarantee you. What's that lady? The crazy one with the blonde hair.
Let's go.
Yeah, Miss Allen. Guarantee you, she is going to put out and repeal that bill. Because once they repeal it, Prop 305, it doesn't exist anymore. Because there's no law for SB 1431 anymore.
And then you'd have to have multiple petitions.
Right.
To get all.
Yeah, because they split it into a whole bunch of different little bills.
So it costs you all kinds of money and
And
time.
we wouldn't be able to afford to hit all of that. Because that's what happened last time.
One bill, vote to repeal the legislator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do,
Right.
is we need to get rid of these legislators who are doing this stuff, because they don't care about us. The only time they look at the people is when they see what they're stepping on. You know, I mean, that's what's so sad about politics anymore. That's why Karen and I ran for office for 6 years. We've got Kelly Townsend. Yeah. David Farnsworth. And Doug Coleman's not a bad guy. He's at least more moderate, so you can at least talk to him.
Paul
But-
Gosar.
Yeah, we got Gosar out there, and what's the other one? Gosar and Biggs. Because our district split Pinal County.
Not related, by the way.
Yeah.
Throwing
He's
that
not
out there. Not related.
So there's a lot of things that we need to work on. And that's why I want to do monthly webinars so we can work this stuff up and actually get it out there as press releases from the caucus. Because we can do press releases without having to go through the state party. Because we are a state party entity. We can't speak for the party, but we can speak for the caucus. And that's what I want to do. I mean, whenever we first got this approved, I don't know, does anybody read The Friendly Atheist? Yeah, he called me and interviewed me about the creation of this caucus and everything and put it on his blog, which is really cool. I like it. I mean, he blogged about Karen and I last time too, because we were the first two atheist humanist candidates popping up. And then we ended up having 9, I think, in 2016. We had 9 secular candidates, all that were, who was the organization? Super PAC. A national Super PAC endorsed all of us. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. That's it. I ran for office for so long, I can't remember anything anymore. So I would fit really, really well at the Capitol. I can't remember shit. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm just curious, has anyone brought up to these people who love the vouchers, especially our legislature leaders, if this would include, say, a madrasa, a Muslim school as well? I mean, doesn't that give them anxiety?
Well, I don't think that a Muslim charter school would ever make it, because I don't think the state legislature would allow it. I'm not sure exactly how they choose those.
The vouchers aren't for the charter.
We do have Islamic schools in the Valley. We already have Islamic schools in the Valley.
And
I
they can
think
get
they're
their
private. I think they're private schools, but
That's fine.
my concern with it, because I thought about this, I'm actually a Muslim, so I've thought about this numerous times about like toying with using that in arguments with conservatives to just say, by the way, that also, yeah, I mean, I don't find that to be a helpful argument to make, because it's kind of like throwing Muslims under the bus at the same time, being like, aren't you afraid of all the terrorists this is going to create? But at the same time, it might be effective for some of them to hear, like, just to fully understand the implications of the voucher.
Why can't you, right now, if that goes through, why can't a Muslim school, Islamic school, get $500,000 for the parent?
Well, they should be able to. They should be able to.
It has nothing to do, it's everything. It's just the destruction of public schools.
Well, true, but I think they want to not have Muslims in their schools.
No, I think they want to try to convert them. I think that they want to try to convert them, is what their goal is. If you bring Muslim students into a school that is religious-based Christianity, they're going to try to bring them over, to recruit them, to convert them to their ideology.
Oh, of course, but they still can get the $5,000
Right.
voucher.
One of the other scary facts of the voucher is homeschooling. Parents can homeschool their kid and take $5,000 and say, yeah, and can just say, here, I'm going to teach you that the sky is red, and collect $5,000 time and time again. And what they can actually do on top of that, because there's no stopping them in the legislation that I'm aware of, is they can pull the $5,000, cash it, and then enroll their kid back into whatever school they want. So it's a free $5,000 that any parent can take a part of. And
It also applies to online schools,
Yeah.
which is really.
And that's the one thing that everybody needs to focus on, is follow the money. Okay, find out where this money is actually going to go.
Yeah, because that's a biggie. There's so many conflicts of interest. There's a legislator that's going to use this money to buy a bunch of land and have a school, and he's going to get rich off of it. And he's the one who sponsored and voted.
Was it
Yarborough?
Yarborough's already doing that.
Yeah.
He made $150,000 off ESA vouchers.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Follow the money.
The ESA vouchers pays him rent on, or the organization he runs pays himself rent on the building he owns.
And he's gonna buy. He's bought like 20 acres of prime real estate that we, the taxpayers, are going to pay for, and his loan is to a Canadian bank.
Yep.
So our tax money is going, and our tax dollars are pledged first on that piece of land.
He should be indicted.
I have some language on the core value issue. If I mean, it needs some work, but if I can read it,
Have the floor.
we can wordsmith it. Okay, let's try this. See if this meets what you're talking about. The caucus will focus on the impact of policies and legislation on the separation of church and state and secular values to ensure that individual rights are protected from religious influence, dogma, I don't have the right word there, and that all religions and those who have no religion are treated equally with respect or something like that, and maintain their freedom of conscience, period. The issues include but are not limited to, I'm a lawyer, I can't help it. The issues include but are not limited to school choice, women's reproductive rights, LGBT rights. And maybe there's other things too. Immigration.
I would suggest the word proselytizing for the pressure thing.
Proselytizing.
Say that 3 times fast.
Proselytizing.
The
Okay.
Constitutional Convention.
BBA, yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing we need to work on.
Any other suggestions on revising this?
Well, a lot of people don't know what secular is, so I was just looking in this brochure. Instead of, they say based on issues that affect church-state separation principles.
So maybe the secular.
I mean, just that you might
Because
use it.
too many people will look at secular and say, oh, you're atheist, we don't like you.
Church, state, or your
Church-state separation principles.
separation principle.
First Amendment.
Yeah.
Which I think is the first part of the sentence that you.
Huh?
I think that's the first part of the sentence that also includes the secular values.
Right, well, I would change it. The caucus will focus on the impact of policies and legislation on the issues that affect church-state separation principles.
If that's okay.
Should I add as in the First Amendment, or leave that out?
I think that's.
As is expressed by the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Of the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
Well, Arizona has one too.
Well,
is it in both of them?
Yes.
No. Well, the Arizona Constitution specifically says that the U.S. Constitution is law of the land.
Well, it has to be for everybody, but the Arizona Constitution has an additional protection for non-believers, which the federal Constitution does not.
okay, so
Because
add
it
both.
says all religions or none.
Add them both. Or just say, yeah, both.
In Arizona.
US and.
Okay, individual rights are protected from religious proselytizing. Is that the word we like? And that all religions and those who have no religion, I don't really like that. All religions and none what?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of into the wordsmithing too. To craft language around defending religion in any way seems kind of inappropriate. I think as a caucus we want to defend religious people and the rights of religious people to practice their religions, but we're not about defending the rights of any religion.
Of religion.
Religions don't have rights.
Right.
People, right.
And doesn't proselytizing kind of limit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if it proselytizing by any doctrine?
Yeah.
I had a doctrine, I like that better than dogma.
Yeah.
Or intent, maybe something about the intention of those, where you have in the very beginning the impact or outcomes.
Impact of policies and legislation. Impact or
Is there
intent?
value in adding something, the intention?
Impact or intent? Okay. Change proselytizing to doctrine?
Well, people don't know. That doesn't, doctrine, what does that mean? Pressuring them for
Indoctrination.
Indoctrination, yeah.
Okay, well then indoctrination is a better word than just doctrine. Something that gets the message across that it's not allowed to pressure
I had
people
influence.
to change.
What about imposition instead of something that says they're trying to impose the religious values or beliefs? Yeah, it could be something on the wall.
I like imposition. I like imposition. You like imposition?
Yeah.
All right, let's go with imposition. And then I like your point, focusing on people, not churches. We're not defending churches.
Right.
We're defending people's beliefs, whatever their
they are.
conscience is.
Yes.
Okay, I'll change it and I'll send it and you can set it out for.
Okay.
Thank you, Thank you.
So, thank you. We accomplished things
Get stuff
today.
done, let's go.
In terms of organizing as a group, what is kind of the go forward in terms of how you prioritize those different issues? How each one is adjudicated by the group and decisions made on how to move forward. So now that you have a core, values or a charter kind of being written, now what's the execution plan, right? So is that something where, like, for example, like if the
first
entities are...
execution plan is going to be training, okay? One of the things that I've tried to do for the past couple of years is train people to use request to speak and bill tracker at the Capitol. We don't have enough people to do that, because that is a direct line to our legislators. When they are in committee and they bring up that, it shows who's voting, who says yes, vote yes, who's neutral, and who's vote no on every single bill that they talk about. That is a person's voice going straight to the legislator. And it's public record. So if they vote to move a committee through that had 2 people voting yes and 400 people voting no, it's public record. And that can be used to point out, you didn't listen to the people. Here's what the people said, and you ignored them. Request to speak is a huge tool that we could use if we can get people trained on it.
Is it something you have to be in the cabinet?
No, hold on. That's the good part.
Okay, let's go back. Request to speak and bill tracker is on their website, the azleg.gov. Okay, I think it's actually not bill tracker, called bill tracker. I think it's got a different name now, I think. But you can, it's the RTS system is what it's called. Now, I know that you used to, and I'm not sure if you still do, you had to actually have somebody log into your account
The first time.
at the Capitol.
You still
At the
do.
first time.
The very first time, okay? Now, Tori with Secular Coalition is like, give me your stuff, I'll go do it for you, because she spends so much time at the Capitol.
Yeah.
I work a mile from the Capitol.
I've done it before.
Yeah, so, you know, if we want to, as a group, start getting people signed up for it, you can, from home, sign up for it, and then send the username and password to myself or to Tori or some of the other organizations. We will go log you in, and then you will have full access to the system. You can log in, change your password, and that way you don't have to worry about somebody like me going in and voting yes on stuff when you're not even
Can I
aware about it.
request not to even have anyone create their own password at first? We can just go down,
Yeah,
put 1, 2,
just
3, 4,
give an
5,
email.
6, and then they can go in and log in
Right.
themselves and change it.
And then you change it, yeah.
Yeah, so
that's the
just
easiest way.
email. All we need is an email address. We can create your account and then send you the information saying, here, this is where you go log in. You go log in, change the password, boom, it's done.
There's even a tutorial online for how to do it
Yeah.
as well.
And
as
I
far
actually
as
have
getting
a,
into the system.
I have a PowerPoint presentation that I've been trying to teach people on a webinar
Oh, okay.
type thing, where I would actually sit and I did I trained some people from LD9, some people around LD16, all online. And it's just a real easy presentation that shows you how to use the bill tracker, how to use the request to speak. Because with request to speak, if there's a bill that they're going to talk about on a certain day that you really hate or that you really love, you can request to testify in favor or opposed to that bill in that committee. You can actually go to the Capitol and stand up there and get your 2 minutes to tell them exactly what you think about the bill.
So I think that's really good from a grassroots perspective in terms of aligning to, because I think there's strength in this, what Tori's doing. Is there a way to, she's already doing a lot of the analysis of the legislation that's coming down, and then based on that, she's pumping out, whatever percentage applies to this, to the needs of this group.
Right.
So that we're not splintered, I don't know how this works from an organization perspective, but so we're not splintered, can we kind of work with her to understand what that is, maybe bolster her, her message?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
because
I know
she's
most
making those relationships with the legislators right now, right?
Yeah.
So it seems to me like that's a good execution arm of what.
Yeah, because I know
in addition to the
Tori,
right to
Caleb,
speak.
and
Right.
I can't remember her first name for some reason.
Carolyn.
Carolyn, no. A lot of the people that are on the board, I'm friends with. I actually was going to apply for the board, but I wanted to concentrate on this instead. So I'm going to definitely be working with organizations like that and try to all.
Well, because that's the thing, is we went around and introduced ourselves, and everybody has a different affiliation with a different legislative district or a different free thinkers or whatever it is. It's like, how do you aggregate the strength of all those different
right, time all together.
Yeah, time all together, and then affect change, right? So to me, this is a great point.
Right, because what this is, if you look at it from a secular coalition, there's an actual secular organization within the Democratic Party now that they can come directly to, that concentrates on the exact same thing to help us push the Democratic Party in that direction.
Yeah.
And get more people paying attention to it. So I mean, yeah, I'm going to be talking to those folks a lot over the next few months, especially before the thing, more than you.
So I know LD18 has someone, and I can't remember who, forgive me, that does a really great succinct list of all the bills that are coming up and sends it to everyone in an email. Would we be able to get that so we can have everyone just log into RTS and just pump out yes, no, yes, no, yes, no?
Who knows that though?
That would read.
I don't know that it's 18. I think it's somebody from.
Are you sure it was in Slack?
No, I think it was from it's an organization that does that.
So somebody from 18 hosted.
Okay.
I know that Tori does
many
one
sources
specifically
now.
for secular things.
Okay.
But for general bills, I can't remember.
But we
what it
should
was.
find out who has the general list to
Yeah.
make sure Tori's stuff is getting on there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And that would be a good idea to continue to push out, I mean, not only to us, but, any district should have that information to be able to utilize.
Right, and that's one of the things we can do. We can filter this all the way down to the CDs and the LDs, and any clubs and stuff like that that the local does. And Tori's she's like the expert on this thing.
Well, one thing that I will volunteer to do as a lawyer, and this, I'm the chair of the legal committee on the Secular Coalition Board as well. And I get letters and emails from people all over the state about violations. For example, An example is the flyers on the wall in this very school, inviting people to the poll. That is a prayer club that meets at the poll. That is illegal. And they're all over the wall. So any of these things, you should report them to me, and I will then write a letter or take whatever appropriate action needs to be taken, sort of the same way FFRF and AU does and that sort of thing. And so far, we haven't had to escalate anything to a lawsuit, but, you know, start the letter writing, alerting people, you can't do this is not legal, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's the role I would be willing to play, is let me know of violations, and then I can just keep poking them.
It's probably not just one school, it's probably multiple.
Oh, I suspect that's true, but somebody's got to tell me. Somebody's got to tell me. And take a picture of that thing on the wall. You don't need to take one here because I've already took one, but, you know.
And that leads to another thing too, is one of the things that we can do as individuals is your local newspaper, letters to the editor. Okay? Push in your opinion in the letters to the editor. Make a really nice, logical post about why you should and shouldn't do this, that, and the other, or why you're opposed to or agree with. Because people still read that stuff. I mean, I get the AJ News every week, and I look through the letters to the editor. I don't really pay that much attention to the rest of it, but I always look at the letters to the editor because it kind of gives you an idea how the people in your community are talking about you. Because there was one that was talking about progressives and all this other stuff, and was shocked when I replied to him and said, "Look, I'm a gun owner. I'm a progressive Democrat, but I'm a gun owner. I've been a gun owner since I was 20 years old. My family's been in the military since the Revolutionary War. It's our family culture. I'm very responsible, and I agree that we need to have background checks, and we need to make it so the people that shouldn't have guns do not have guns. But don't say progressives don't believe in the Second Amendment, because you're totally wrong." And I replied to that, and they put it in the paper. And then the guy just shut up. So that's the thing, is make people know that what they're getting from mainstream media isn't accurate. It's their opinion. It's not fact. Let's change those facts.
Trump, in his speech in Alabama, I think, said something about if Hillary had gotten elected, she'd take your rifles.
Well, they said that about Obama too, and 8 years later, everybody still.
I'm still waiting for Obama to come take my guns. I mean, really. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I know our Free Thinkers group in Sedona, the Verde Valley, what we did was we changed our name and became the Secular Free Thinkers, and we give a donation to the Secular Coalition. So that's a thought for your groups, is you can join up and then you'll get auditory stuff.
Right. And that's the thing too, is if we are, once I figure out if we can set up and do treasure, or we can do fundraising, we can set up a website so people can donate to the cause and everything like that, and we could use that to bring Secular Coalition in for specific talks. Help shoulder that burden, because I mean, I donate to them all the time, but money's tight, and they have to really work on it.
People here that, you know, are in Free Thinkers, Indivisible,
Right.
and
But the thing is, though, is if we use our might, and if we have funding to where we could do a co-joint event, Secular Coalition with Secular Caucus, and do that around the state to some of these other clubs, and bring some of the free thinkers groups in that aren't familiar with what's going on, bring them in. Say, this is what we're doing. You want to be a part of it?
yeah, because we had the president of the national president came to Sedona and talked to us, just because, you know, we're members.
Well, he wanted to see the box. I mean, that's what
The vortex.
Yes.
Hey Scott, can you share with everyone too, maybe through email, who the candidates are that are running, like that are working with Andre or folks?
Yeah, I know that Andre's been really good this year because we've sent some possible candidates to him.
Great.
Because he was on our campaign team last year.
Yeah. Or with Sarah and those
Sarah
guys
and
with
Evan.
the spectrum.
So
share with us.
any of those, I'm going to try to network those guys and get them to give us any list of candidates that are secular candidates. Because one of the things that I would like to see changed in the state bylaws is that the caucuses are not allowed to endorse before the primary. So we can't say, this person is a secular person, and they meet our values and we want to endorse them. We can't do that until after the primary. But after the primary, it doesn't do any good because the primary's over.
Well,
So
is
whoever's
there
on the
an
ballot's gonna make it.
Is there an assumption of endorsement if you send the group a list of folks who identify as secular or non-religious?
Depends on the wording.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things we could do is we could come up with a list of questions and send that out to every candidate. And then grade them on their vote, on how they did
And
it.
how that aligns with secular values.
Yeah, and how it
then
aligns, which ones are more aligned with, and that way you're getting every single candidate the same opportunity, there's no endorsement behind it. And that's one of those things that we need to do this year.
I think it's really important for folks to know, to look towards who they
Yeah, because in that, when we were first getting signatures, one of the common questions that kept coming up was, is this that atheist thing? And it's like, no, this is not atheist. This has nothing to do with atheism. You know, atheist or humanist, whatever. I said, this is specifically to work on separation of church and state things. You as a Christian, do you support separation of church and state? Well, yes, we'll sign the form. Okay, boom, it's done. But that was the thing that kept coming up. Was people asking me, well, this is about that atheist stuff, right? No. It's about your values and my values being run over by people that are using their beliefs to write laws.
That can be really harmful, though, in a purple district. And, you know, we might
What
get
can be
somebody
very harmful?
to have them have to sign any kind of loyalty pledge or any.
Well, I would never have to do that.
You know, like, so for example, one candidate I know who's for proper gun control, isn't interested in taking anybody gun away, but can't really say, you know, I mean, he obviously cares about it, but he'll say, yes, I believe in the Second Amendment. I've seen it. But he's not going to come out and say he's for gun control because it's so tight, the race, that you can't do that.
So, are you saying it can be hurtful to have folks answer?
Yes.
So not loyalty pledges,
Right.
but
even
having
Yes.
a few things that would help us identify who we would
You know,
support.
in our
versus-
district, we know who those candidates are. We don't have any problem
Yeah,
identifying
that's true.
them.
Yeah, because in private, they probably actually do express that. I
Yeah.
mean, Karen and I, we weren't private about it.
I mean, if there's,
Can we roll those into a different set of questions though, so it's
So-
not like secular questions,
I think there's a big assumption going on here that everybody in a district knows who these people are, because I can tell you, I don't. Because I've only been here for 2 years, and 1 year of it I was sick. And I know a lot of people that have just moved into this district would not have that information.
Well, and not only that, I feel like there are in the state seats outside of your legislative districts, you know, when you start getting into some of the weeds on, you know, your LD 25 candidate for this state seat, it's like I lose focus on who's on not only who's from what district, but who's running for what seat and what their values actually stand for, because there are so many different, you know, opportunities. And I know, you know, here in 15 minutes we're going to have a barrage of candidates walk through the door and give us their 30-minute spiel, and I'm going to walk out going, okay, who was who and who did I like from that 30 seconds?
You're going to do a 2 to 3 minute speech.
Yeah,
please.
So maybe the solution is going to your things like your indivisible group and think people who are familiar with our local candidates and learning from them versus maybe trying, I'm not saying out somebody, but maybe.
I mean, if
Or you can have a private conversation.
and you're in a, say, blue district, if you don't support things so that it becomes common to hear good people supporting these things, it is a problem. But if you're in a purple district, oh man, you measure every word carefully.
And when you're in a red district, it doesn't matter what you say.
Right.
Trust
Well,
me.
and at that point, it's kind of like you guys, at least showing other people that they're.
And that was
have
what
things
our
in common.
last election cycle was about, was actually changing the dynamic.
Even though some candidates knew, I know I'm not going to win, but at least I opened some dialogue, let
Created
other folks know
conversation.
that there's non-religious people around.
Right.
I've heard candidates in our district in 16 specifically say, if you're a Republican and your name's on the ballot, you're a shoo-in. You're a win.
Well, that's what the last Republican in our district thought too.
Yeah,
but
which
our
district do you win?
district, they do. Yeah.
Right, but
The
there's
Senate
a
candidates spent all
there's a
his money.
5,000 voter difference between Republicans and Democrats in your district. There is a 25,000 voter
I know.
difference in our district.
No, our district was
So-
purple, but the Republican candidate for the Senate thought I just have to get in the primary, and then he did nothing.
Yeah, our unfortunate
Well,
downside.
so this time around, it's gonna be really.
Yeah, it's gonna be tight, yeah,
Well,
there's
it's
gonna be
never-
some money spent there.
Yeah, our unfortunate downside is the 25,000 difference between Republicans and Democrats, but then you throw the independents in there that also sway Republican the majority of the time.
Mhm.
And,
And there's 38% Republican, 37% independents, and
Yeah.
25% Democrats in our district. So, me running for the Senate, yeah. I mean, if that asteroid would have hit, maybe. But other than that,
But you know what, you probably help the,
True.
the county candidates and.
yeah, and that's what we try to do
candidates.
is work from the bottom up. I'm a big fan about start at the bottom and lift up everybody as opposed to starting at the top and then trying to work down. Because by the time you get halfway down, people stop listening. But if you give them somebody local that they can talk to, then they're going to be more interested. Because, hey, I know that person. They live right down the street. Of course, I don't want to tell people my address because then I get egged and toilet paper and everything else on the house.
Nazi symbols on your garage.
No, not yet. No, that was actually the Republican that got
Yeah,
it.
that was Adam. And that
Yeah,
was
but he's Jewish. That's why they did that.
atrocious nonetheless.
Yeah, that was a horrible thing that they did.
And that is the one thing I will say that LD16 is really trying to work on. We just re-elected all of our new officers at the last meeting, and our big push is to really start local, start that grassroots efforts again. Because again, you hit these candidates, your state school superintendents, your governors, or things like that, and I think people focus on that issue like those are the people that are really affecting the power. And while on some level they are, but even on a national level, yes, they're causing things to happen, but you've really got to focus on your local level. So we're really making a big push to, if there is a bill in place, school vouchers being specific, we've got to be able to go out and preach how that's going to affect in our local area, and then go to our neighbors and say how that's going to affect LD8 and our other neighbors, and then work together and then say, okay, now that you know that, this is how it's affecting the state, this is how it's affecting your region, and then nationally. So you do start from the bottom and build up, and I think people are more receptive to that because you can say, this is your neighbor, your friend, your kid, your grandkid, whatever that is, and they actually care versus saying, this Joe Schmo in Connecticut, well, nobody knows Joe in Connecticut. Nobody gives a crap about Joe in Connecticut if they live in Arizona. So,
on how this caucus is going to impact, does this? I've not been involved, but does the state party have positions that they take on things so that one of our jobs could be to ensure that positions that they take on things include a secular value, i.e. the separation of church and state value. For example, they have a position paper on school choice. Then we would want to make sure that in that position paper it says something about separation of church and state, and that taxpayer dollars should not go to private or religious schools for this reason, because of that. If they have a position on DACA or a position on women's health care, that the caucus could make sure that on official Democratic Party positions, there is an inclusion of the secular values of separation of church and state in that official position.
That's something that we would have to work with the state party's communications folks to get them to start doing that.
Well, can that be one of our goals or one of our...
Oh yeah, no, it's a good idea. It's a great idea.
I mean, I'm certainly willing to give you all the legal arguments for this or that position.
Right.
Because I do all that all the time.
Because we should do that. I mean, we should make sure that we are actually putting ourselves into that position, and so that they actually see us as a value added to their whatever their position is.
Correct.
No, that's a great idea. So we need to watch that. We need to see what positions they're taking on certain things.
Well, I'm not a PC and I'm not a state committee person, so y'all, if you want some legal arguments for why you should be in this or that, let me know and I'm happy to provide.
Yeah, I'll just email you.
What's your name?
Diane Post. I've spoken at door.
Yes. I think you stayed at my house.
Did I stay at your house?
Yeah.
So one of the other things too, when we're talking about how we can kind of, how we can act, is like what Brandon was saying. One of the things that we're trying to do in LD16 is work within our community. And somebody, I think it was from Indivisible CD5, sent me a message and asked about one of the things that you don't see people doing from the party. When was the last time did you see party members doing a clothing drive or a food drive? Working within the communities, the small communities, like for example your organization down in Sierra Vista area. Do you guys do food
Yes.
drives and stuff like
Very
that?
nicely. Every one of our general meetings, we have a different donation. So everybody's encouraged to bring in some donations.
Right. And, but see, that's the thing, is nobody knows that, right? So what needs to happen is we need, well, no, I'm saying statewide.
It's statewide though.
Statewide. So, say you guys are having a fundraiser where you're gonna try to raise food for your local food bank, okay? Then what you do is you get that information to us, and we send it out, and we get it added to the AZ Resist calendars. We get it added to everywhere, so that secular free thinkers or stuff like that starts popping up everywhere. So people start becoming familiar with the idea, or the language, and then start being curious as to exactly what it means. And that's when we can come in and say, well, what it means is, how would you like it if Saudi Arabia came over and imposed their government on you and changed the law so that you had to follow their tenets? Well, I would like that. Okay, well, what about the Muslims that live here and the non-believers that live here that you're pushing that on to in the same way?
Yeah, but they're right, so it's.
Well,
Right.
They have the right.
And the big push to that as well in doing these community events. I mean, it's great that you have that at your monthly meeting, but what about the people that don't attend the monthly meeting? So we're really making a big push. We have a lot of like community events. We're kind of fine on the Maricopa end of our district, because in our district we straddle both Maricopa and Pinal County. Pinal County, obviously, with Apache Junction, has about 40,000 people in it, and it's a heavily Republican populated area, so that's where our core focus is. So we're really trying to get into working with the local nonprofits, because they're on the ground front. I just so happen to work with probably one of the biggest nonprofits in the county, but we're really trying to figure out where we can plug in and actually be good stewards and not just push a platform, but push, hey, we're building the community, we're making the community stronger. So Scott had mentioned that clothing drive. That's one of the things that we actually want to get set up in partnership with the local churches and other nonprofits to be at this event for low-income homeless families, anything along that line, to just say, hey, here's free clothes, here's free resources, come out. And that's sponsored by the LD16 Democrats. So when that's publicized in any event that we're doing, or if we're at another community event, like there's the Apache Junction Parks and Rec Department in October does this wonderful trunk or treating event that, all the families bring their kids out, because they really try to just encourage, instead of trick or treating, you do one place that it's a little bit more safer and things along that line. And we want to be at that event as well, handing out pamphlets or flyers or something to just be out and saying, we're in the community, we're doing things to uplift everybody. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, gay, straight, whatever, black, white, it doesn't matter. You're a part of our community. And if you're Republican or Democrat, I'm going to look at you and say, you're a human, how can I help you? And build you up.
But you put your name on the flyer.
We put our name on the flyer. It's
Okay, what I'm wondering is, if we could put that in the newspaper, our local newspaper.
Yeah, we do it all the time.
And then put, so, when you just says, we're taking donations right now to help out, blah, blah.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
And that would be good.
And when you make the donation, you should follow that up with we donated 1,000, cans of food to the local food bank. This was in courtesy to, our generous community members. I mean, you don't want to put it back on you. You really want to give it to like the community standpoint on the community rallied and supported your cause, and not just your members of your organization raised this and did this, but really focus it on the community, because then as a whole it's going to make you look larger, but then people are going to start listening to that. If you continue to do those events, then people will listen to that.
Yes, sir.
LD18 is getting some success by having Clean Your Parks. We have signed up with the City of Tempe to do a cleanup service at Redden Park, and in the City of Chandler on a monthly basis to clean another park. It works more than one way. One way, you interact with the park goers who say, thank you for keeping our park clean. The other thing is, if we do this for 12 months, we will get a plaque. LD18 Democrats are keeping your parks clean. And that's going to be like a permanent
Yeah.
thing.
Because in a lot of these districts, that's the problem, is people don't know who we are. what we are.
And I think the large part to that is as a Democratic Party, we have to rethink our platform because we have to start at a local and grassroots effort, and we can't come out and say, well, the Republicans don't do this or the Republicans don't do that, because we know that that's just going to turn people off. And and when you think about it on a national scale, we are so polarized right now, and we're a 50-50 divide between the Republicans and the Democrats. Now is our opportunity to step up and say, I don't give a shit who you are. We're moving forward as Americans and putting American values ahead of party values, and I think there we will start seeing a shift because people will start looking at that and get over this whole Trump, Hillary, Democrat, Republican, whatever issue that they have, and actually start to move forward as one unit.
We're not 50-50, and I think it's dangerous to say that.
Well, true.
So, okay, is there anything else? Because we're going to have candidates start coming in. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question that it's probably a little bit out of ignorance, and I did unfortunately come in late. If you're trying to speak in a secular tone, and what I wanted to clarify is, a person can have a secular view as far as separation of church and state, which I truly believe in. But can a person be a religious person personally, or are you saying not?
No, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, we want people from any religion to be here. Because this is about protecting them just as much as it is about protecting me as a humanist, my wife who's an atheist. This is about just keeping separation between church and state, period. It's not attacking religion. We don't want to attack religion.
You're attacking the imposition of religion
on
others.
So would you be in favor of taxing church property?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
I think so. Well, especially if they're going to be dabbling into politics.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's going to get worse. But I mean, that's the thing, is we need to actually have a point where people are starting to be held accountable for that.
Yeah, they're here, so.
Yeah, Tori's Brianna is running, she's kind of in the Hispanic Caucus, but she wanted to let me know. It's really important for her to be here.
Yes, I know. I talked to her last night.
Yeah, she'll be here as soon as she can. She just wanted to let you know.
No, we got another half hour.
Okay, but she was hoping to be here already.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
But she wouldn't have been able to talk if she got here before.
Right, good. I'm glad they'll come through.
So I guess we're going to go ahead and move on to candidates. Who's candidates? Everybody raise your hand. I know you are. Hello, back here in the back.
She's asleep. Karen. He's trying to call
Are
you.
you a candidate?
No.
No, I'm not running for anything.
She would want, she's promoting.
We have another guy.
There was a young man back there, but I don't think he's.
No, he got left.
John actually right back.
Can I have one?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, we'll start with candidates now.
Thank you so much for
2-3 minutes,
the
please.
opportunity. My name is Kiana Sears. I'm running statewide for Arizona Corporation Commission. I'm running as a clean elections candidate, so I am collecting the $5 donations. So please help me in this statewide endeavor. Why I'm running? Opportunity is so important to me. Opportunity for us to thrive. Currently, our opportunity to thrive in Arizona is being stolen by the Corporation Commission in the form of increasing rates. As rates go up, I see children come to school, they have less supplies, they have less clothing, they have less of everything because we have to have energy in Arizona. It's not a maybe, it's not, we have to have our utilities to operate and function in Arizona. There was a time you could go to the library this summer, parents would send their kids to the libraries to cool off and do all those things. Our libraries are closed most of the time now. So you don't really have that much opportunity. I am totally for capitalism, but we have a lot of our energy companies that are over-earning because of the amount of corruption. The reason for the Corporation Commission is to protect the ratepayer. That's why it was formed, that's why it was established, to actually be the watchdog for the activity that it's currently engaged in, which is corruption. And as liberals and progressives, a lot of things that we've talked about in the past has been APS, 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 but I tell people all the time, it needs to be corruption, 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 because it's not just one company. The company that has the indictments, Johnson Utility, that was an APS. Corruption at the root is the issue. We need to elect new people who will be honest, transparent, have integrity, and one, have experience. Right now, Doug Little is being elevated to the highest energy regulatory body nationally. He was appointed by the president, and he has no energy regulation experience at all. I have a long-term history. It's my professional background. I'm one of 20 people. I'm certified not just locally, but by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, because I worked for the Corporation Commission for almost 10 years. And before that, I was at the state legislature. So policy and energy regulation and understanding how it needs to be implemented and being able to say no is key for me. And as a staff member, executive consultant, I could give recommendations that the commissioners would the last buck. So often I would actually have to sit and digest the wrong decision. That's one of the reasons why I'm running. That's why it's so important to me. And I need feet on the ground. So I'm doing the power of 3 with my campaign. I have envelopes, and with my envelopes, it has 3 opportunities for you to have other people give $5 for seed money, and also 1 for petitions. Because I'm going to need the whole state to help us do all clean elections candidates. What we need is 1,800 fives and about 7,000 signatures. So with your help, we can do that. It's just all of us doing little. And I just want to say a little bit about this organization and how I feel about it, because I am a Christian. When Athena Salman was not allowed to pray, actually, you can look at pictures, I was there, because my freedom to express my religion, live my faith, and do what I do is at my core. This past year, I actually had to change churches because my church actually had a Pence rally. So I sat in this total devastation and was, my husband called it unchurched for about 6 months until I found a new location. So that's my experience. So it's so important that we do what Scott was just talking about. Because yes, churches are engaging. Everyone from the so-called religious, right, white, wrong, whatever you want to call it, is engaging in politics. And I want everyone's freedom and liberties to be protected. So I definitely work a lot with Evan and Sarah to actually do my literature, because I love the inspiration that they bring. And it's about freedom and the ability for all of us to express what we love and care in a compassionate way. Because so you'll always see me on my personal Facebook. You always see something, whether it's a sermon or this and that, because my higher power and what I believe in keeps me going. Because this isn't easy, never been easy. And for me to win my school board race, I knew it took a prayer. To be the first black person, not only black person, but first minority ever elected on Mesa School Board. And when I literally, the party laughed when I started. I had the groups that's come to me and said, you can't do enough canvases to win this race. But we did it. It was the power of and the will of the people. So thank you so much, and do come by. I'll send my card out, but I have more than enough literature. I have enough for probably 20 times more people than here. So please take some and actually be that power of 3 with me. Thank you. Thank you.
Just go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, just come yeah, let's try to keep it to like 3 minutes or so.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
It's kind of boring.
I'm David Shapiro. I'm a candidate for Superintendent of Public Instruction. And I started my career as an educator. I've been a longtime public education advocate. And I went to schools. Grew up in Arizona here, went to public schools. I send my kids to public schools here in the state. And I can't tell you how excited I was to find out about this particular caucus being formed, because it's about time. I grew up in Arizona. I went to an elementary school where my brother and I were the only non-Christians in the building. I went to a high school where I played on the football team, and our team got together before each practice and before each game and knelt in the center of the field and prayed. And I was the one kid to stand on the outside and be ostracized. And so, the Anti-Defamation League and other organizations were out there fighting to ensure that those who may not be in the majority or in the perceived majority in a school system especially are protected and that our rights are protected, that's critically important. And I think it's about time that the Democratic Party have a secular coalition caucus. I'm very proud to be here at your very first meeting. So I believe personally that, I believe deeply in the founding principle of separation of church and state. And I want to arm you with something, and I think most of you in this room are probably already armed with this. And there's some other folks here who can talk to you intelligently about this as well. But a lot of times we hear people say there is no separation of church and state in our Constitution. And the answer to that, if you don't already know, is not only is it in the Constitution, it is in the very first amendment to the Constitution. And that is the Establishment Clause. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment says, not only do each of us as individuals have the right to participate, to associate, and to speak about our individual faiths, but we also have the right to not be indoctrinated into another faith. And so the government, not only can it not prevent you from praying if you are a member or associate with a religion, but it also cannot establish a religion and force you to participate in that religion. What happened with my football team, where everybody else on the team prayed and I was left out of that circle and ostracized, that violates the First Amendment to our Constitution. And as the superintendent of public instruction, I want to ensure that every school in this state, A, is following the Constitution. But B, we have to recognize that when we don't follow the Constitution, when we do things like what was done on my football team, and I had players on my team tell me to go back to Israel because they found out that the reason I wasn't praying with them was because I was Jewish. When things like that happen, we have to put a stop to it. And so the B is that we have to ensure that our kids in our school system are not subjected to that kind of bullying, because that's exactly what it is. In my last term in the legislature, when I was in the state senate, I ran a comprehensive anti-bullying bill. And that bill actually made it out of the state senate, with the senate president being the tie-breaking vote. And it was killed on its way over to the House in a procedural measure by a woman who a lot of you will know named Kathy Herron from the Center for Arizona Policy. And I want to tell you her reason for killing it, because I heard her say this to a legislator, was because she said that we shouldn't be stopping bullying in schools. Because bullying is the best tool to prevent gay kids from being gay. It is that kind of mentality, that kind of work to try to establish a state religion in this country, which is unconstitutional, that lends to a lot of what we see in this country when it comes to bullying in our schools. And so I need your help, I need this coalition's help in this next election cycle, for the first time in 23 years, to elect a public school educator as the superintendent of public instruction. Someone who has grown up in public schools in the state, who sends their kids to public schools, so I can go down there and advocate for every kid in every classroom, in every corner of this state, and so that no student has to deal with what I dealt with, being ostracized by the players on my football team. Thank you so much for the time today, and thank you so much for creating this coalition. It's awesome.
Okay, so those are our two candidates for elect. Who's all candidates? I know those two in the corner.
I'm not here for cabinet. Take the first.
Okay, Deidre, please. Let's try to stay somewhere close to 3 minutes.
Oh, I was just doing it in a minute.
A minute, there you go.
Okay. Separation of religion and state is so important, it's on my platform. It is not something that I come to this caucus and talk about. Sorry, Deidre. I'm Deidre. I'm running for U.S. Senate to unseat Flake. All right. Religion and state is so important that it's on my platform. It is not just on my website. It's not something I come to this caucus and talk about. It is something that I talk about as my top 4 issues everywhere I go. It is that important because without religious liberty for everybody, there's religious liberty for nobody. And that has to include people who don't want to have any religion at all. These are fundamental ideas. The reason why we have attacks on the LGBTQ community, the reason why we have attacks on women's reproductive rights, is because God said so. And that is fine for your home, and you're welcome to discriminate within your religious institution, but the government doesn't get paid to do that. They get paid to make sure what our whole society wants, what our whole society is interested in, and what serves our whole society. That's what we pay them for. That's what we vote them for. We don't vote for them and pay them so that they can discriminate against us based on a religious interpretation, because every denomination doesn't even agree. That's my message to this caucus. Thank you.
I'm Bill Pierce, candidate for the Arizona State Mine Inspector's Office. As well as where your religious views will play no bearing unless the mine caves in on top of you, then everybody's got to I'm looking out to replace our current mine inspector. One of the things I'm very fussy about is job site safety. I was in an accident on a job site 30 years ago. They still don't know how I lived through it. I fell 16 feet, landed on my head on a concrete floor. I landed right here. I split my skull open from here all the way to the base. I had 193 stitches in the back of my head. The only thing that saved my life was just before I hit the concrete, there was an iron stair railing. I brushed it with this ear and I caught it right here. I shattered everything from here all the way down here and back here. I spent nearly a year in a weighted cast trying to pull everything back into line in the arm because it was so badly shattered they couldn't even plate it. They couldn't do surgery on it. It was so bad. Using sheer weight trying to pull it back. They said I'd never, first they wanted to amputate the arm. They said you'll never get use of it. I proved them wrong. I'm ornery. But ever since then, I've been a staunch advocate for workplace safety. I don't care if you're in a mine or in an office, at Walmart. Workplace safety is a critical issue, and damage to people getting hurt, that knows no religious boundaries, knows no racial boundaries, no sexual boundaries, but it knows nothing. It just happens. And we need to have somebody in there that is aware, and we'll start finding these companies that violate the safety rules big time. We have, of our mining, one of our problems, uranium mines. The Navajo Reservation is so contaminated, the average age of lung cancer for one of the Navajos that works in these mines and doesn't even smoke, lung cancer, 44.1 years is the average age of onset. A chain smoker can live 65 years before it comes on. So, that uranium is very dangerous. Almost the entire reservation is contaminated, right up to and including right up to the edge of the Grand Canyon. The mine that's in there right now has been cited numerous times for failure to report an incident within the mines, failure to report injuries in the mines, and failure to preserve evidence of an injury. They hide the evidence. The biggest the fines they're receiving from our current mine officer, mine inspector, $300. Boy, that's going to discourage these multi-billion-dollar companies from. That's really going to shake them up to wait. It's really going to make them safe, isn't it? They're going to want to invest money in safety so they don't have to spend that $300. That's it. So I've got information out on the table. I'm running clean. I've got clean election forms out there. I've got a few of these left. I've got some more out there. And one of these days I'll collect them. I've also got seed money contributions so I can actually afford to get real ones printed instead of having to do it myself. So, but thank you for your time.
You let Jim.
Have the floor.
All right, awesome.
2 to 3 minutes, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brianna Westbrook. I'm running for the congressional seat in District 8 against Trent Franks. Some of you may have met me. I've been in the trenches fighting against Trump now since he took office. I've been sitting in Jeff Flake's office. I've been everywhere that you guys are because I'm the candidate for the people. I have a unique perspective to this seat and this race. I grew up a life that most politicians don't have. I moved out when I was 16. At 19, I began shoveling asphalt to pay my bills. I mention that because I know what hard work is. In order to make progress in Congressional District 8, we're going to have to work hard. We're going to have a platform that connects with all people. My platform is that. I want to see Medicare for all. We can't have a healthcare system when the government is involved. Not the government, but private, for-profit healthcare companies are in it. I want to end for-profit prisons. I want to see clear separation of church and state. I want to bring the change that we all want in this room, and I can do it. My current career, what I do is I'm a sales manager at a Honda dealership on the corner of 84th Avenue and Bell. One thing that I've done there, and I've done it very well, is communicate. I can communicate with people that have different opinions than mine. I can talk to people on the other side of the fence to bring the progress that we need. At the Trump rally, I did hold a sign for a little bit, but I took the opportunity to talk to people that have a different opinion than mine. After engaging in communication with them, I found that we had common issues that we both agreed on. We have to build on the common issues to bring progress. That's something I can do, something I will do, and that I am already doing. Anybody have any questions?
What is your last name again?
Westbrook.
Westbrook, thank you. Are you running against who?
I'm running against Trent Franks in Congressional District 8.
Yay.
In order to...
One of my, okay, the front, right, thank you.
Cool. This is gonna take a lot of work. We're gonna need to knock on doors, we're gonna need to make phone calls, and we're gonna need to engage with our young voters. That's something I can do. I'm 32 years old. I can inspire our youth to get out and vote. I've looked at the census. I think we've been looking at it wrong for a long time. There are so many young families there. So many young families who want a leader that they can believe in, that they can connect with. I am that candidate. Because I have a young family. My daughter's here with me today. I know the struggles that our families face, because I face them. That's what we need in leadership. Our house was designed to be a representation of the people. I am the people. I will bring the change that we need. Thank you. If you're not in the district, that is completely fine. I want you to share my name on social media, your friends and family. I'm sure you know somebody that lives in the district. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a sign-up sheet someplace running around. It's over there. So please sign in so you can be included as part of the class.
I'm next.
You don't look like Kathy.
Oh, I'm not Kathy. Yeah. I'm wearing the label of Kathy Hoffman's campaign, though, so you see that right there. I am Andre Soleil. I see a few faces I recognize in here from, well, maybe from up here, but we've got folks who've shown up at Secular Coalition for Arizona events, so I'm excited that this caucus finally exists. But my name's Andre. I'm Kathy Hoffman's strategist. I work for her campaign, and I am proud to be working for Kathy's campaign, because it's about time that we not only have someone who is a staunch advocate for the separation of church and state, and an educator running for superintendent of public instruction, but we need someone who represents a religious minority, like atheists, for example, many of whom I'm sure are in this room, in public office as well. We need to diversify that. We can't continue a scenario where the religious privilege of Christians is being pushed in a manner that silences the rest of us. So Kathy Hoffman, she is an educator. She's a speech and language pathologist who works in the Peoria School District. She also worked in Tucson for a while. In her current capacity, she works at a Title I school in Peoria with students who are largely from underserved communities, students who speak Spanish as a primary language, and we can talk about the issue of systemic racism in our schools and the racist policy of English-only instruction, because those matter, absolutely. But I think what's of greatest interest to this community is the exercise of religious privilege in pushing policies that impact LGBTQ youth in our schools, that impact religious minorities, that gag teachers who want to be able to talk about LGBT issues with their students, with students who are impacted by bullying and students who are impacted by discrimination. Kathy intends to pursue aggressively a policy of anti-discrimination against LGBT youth, particularly trans youth, at the state level. Her LGBT policy is dedicated to installing professional trained staff who are not only familiar with how to help LGBT youth, but can provide services, professional services, and give them access to the resources that they need to reduce the rates of bullying that we see in our schools, and of course the suicide and self-harm rates that come with unrestricted bullying, like we are seeing in the state of Arizona with folks like Diane Douglas defending it as a former religious liberty. So I don't want to go on forever about that, but what I do want to say is Kathy Hoffman, if we're looking for a progressive candidate, if we're looking for a candidate who really is going to be a staunch advocate for the rights of minorities, including atheists, Muslims, LGBT students, Hispanic students who are not allowed to speak their own language when attempting to learn English in school, Kathy Hoffman is that candidate. It's time we have an educator who really understands the harm that is being done to our students with the policies that have been put in place by folks like Kathy Herod shoving bigoted legislation through our legislature. So I'd like to give out some literature here. A little bit about Kathy's policies, and in case you didn't know, Kathy is a clean elections candidate. So this is where I get to ask for money. She's running as a clean elections candidate, which means if you give her a $5 contribution, you help us get to that $1,500 $5 contribution mark. Kathy will be funded by public money, meaning there will be no corporate interests dictating to Kathy's campaign the policies she's going to be advocating and putting into place as superintendent of public instruction. So is there anyone here who would like to give a $5 and make sure we can help Kathy run clean without any corporate influence in the campaign? I have forms you can hold up your hand. You already did? All right, so you got one. Already did. Absolutely. We have a table out in the main cafeteria area. So if you want to give a $5, you want to come by and meet Kathy, you are more than welcome to. We would love to hear your opinion. Anyone want literature? All right, I'll go ahead and pass some around here. Her name or my name? My name is Andre Soleil. It's S-A-L-A-I-S.
Her name is on your shirt.
Her name is on my shirt. Yeah, I'm a walking billboard here. So.
Can I talk to you about the speakers, Sunday speakers?
Absolutely.
After
yes.
This?
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm January from Vedas, and I am running for Attorney General. I'm happy to be here. How long is it? 2 minutes?
Well, we're done in 5. So.
Okay.
You're a lawyer, so you'll take 10.
I'll try not
Some
to.
of us are good.
Quickly about my background, I'm from Arizona. I raised my kids here. My parents were raised here as well. I am a former county prosecutor, a former assistant attorney general. When I was an assistant attorney general, I prosecuted crimes mostly that occurred in nursing homes and homes for severely developmentally disabled adults. It was sometimes abuse, it was sometimes financial exploitation, always a very great privilege to work on those cases on behalf of those victims and their families. I worked for Governor Napolitano for the next dozen years. I went with her, I worked at the governor's office at a time when we were fighting to expand health care, not to eliminate it. And I worked with her at the Department of Homeland Security, where we were trying to make sure that victims who were immigrants were treated the same as any other victim, because that wasn't happening. I'm running now, after the last 4 years, having started and run a nonprofit legal aid office. We provide free legal services to kids and young adults impacted by abuse, trafficking, the foster care system. I'm running because of all that. I mean, my whole life has been about public service. In this time with the Trump administration, it's been a very difficult time. We don't know what's coming next. We don't know who they're coming after next. The attorneys general across the country have been the people who have stood up to the Trump administration time after time. And it frustrates me to see my adversary, Mark Brnovich, the current AG, wrap himself in the flag while he's willing to watch the Constitution be trampled on over and over. I'm running to protect the rights of our people, and I'm also running to bring who the office is beholden to back to Arizonans, because somewhere along the way, not just Brnovich, but all of our statewides have forgotten who they are accountable to. I wanted to come here especially because in my intro video I mentioned my faith, and there was a lot of questions on my Facebook page about that. It's a big, huge part of my life that's just for me, but I think what's important and probably why you felt you created this caucus, I think just in the last year, is my faith should never drive the policies that we're fighting for. It should never drive how we're defending the Constitution. It should never drive so that I can pick and choose whose rights I'm going to defend. And that's what we see now at the Attorney General office. So that's why I'm running. I'm very proud to be running. It's going to be a hard race, but it is a race we can win. As Democrats, we've got to understand we can win again. And I'm very happy to be here with all of you, and I thank you for your role in trying to make sure that the Constitution is protected, because that's a big part of this caucus.
We don't have any more candidates?
Do you have cards?
Do we have any more candidates? CJ, are you running for something?
January.
You
can say that here.
All right. Okay, so we're about done. They're going to be moving the resolutions into this room after we're done. So let's go ahead and
I put some of your stuff on the table.
Is it okay to call it adjournment, everyone?
Yes.
All right, we call this adjourned. Thanks for being here for the very first meeting. Let's make stuff happen.
I like it too.
I'm doing well.
I didn't have to fill out
Just for this.
Yeah, well, whatever the motivation. If you don't believe
Both of you?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eric.
I agree. So you got more.
Seriously?
Thank you. What's your last name? Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Could you shut up for I just live in like that, like you live in a mobile home, but it's like
Yes. How are you? Hi, Terry and Hill. How are you? We're doing
Anything to do with the skeptics organization?
Yeah.
Nashville, oh my gosh, they have huge conferences in Las Vegas. Lots of people in that conference. But anyway, my
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. I'm sure you're there. If they believe it.
it's not a problem either, but people want to
That would be nice.
So we can reach that.
I second
Pass them all. Okay, we're good. I vote aye.
Yeah, we go over here. Yeah.
Ralph saw you there.
Yes, we go over here.
I'm in on that. I just said, I on all.